Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. Time is running out in Myanmar to rescue thousands of locals who are still trapped below meters of debris. With over 72 hours passing since the earthquake struck, meters of debris and scarcity of rescue personnel has made the operation even more challenging. There are several countries that have sent medical and financial aid, but India, through its Operation Brahma, has followed its first responder approach. From deploying 118 highly trained personnel to sending 80 tons of medical aid and setting up a makeshift hospital, several agencies in India have stepped up in helping Myanmar in times of crisis. But what's made the rescue operation even more difficult is the continuing civil war and airstrikes that the rebels have reportedly being done by the military junta. Several countries like Singapore have called for an urgent ceasefire as well. I'm going to start my conversation. I have with me Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Ambassador Dayal, firstly, talking about the commendable job that is being done by the Indian Armed Forces, by the NDRF and the other rescue and relief missions that have been initiated under Operation Brahma by India, by the Ministry of External Affairs, that has been giving us information hour by hour. We have been able to set up a makeshift 200-bed hospital as well. But it is hard to say how soon will rescue operations be completed, keeping in mind the tense situation Myanmar finds itself in. How do we move forward in helping the people of Myanmar?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. First of all, regarding this extremely commendable operation, as you put it, it is really based on Prime Minister's policy, which is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, because under Prime Minister Modi's lead, India has always been the first responder. And he has underlined the fact that India will always try to help people in distress because we consider the world as one family. And that is why when COVID struck the world, the COVID pandemic came, then Vaccine Maitri was adopted as the policy under Prime Minister Modi. And then when Turkey and Syria went through the earthquakes, then again India sent relief assistance in terms of the operation, which was called Operation Dost. So this has been consistently India's policy under the stewardship of Prime Minister Modi, because he firmly believes, he just doesn't speak of this, but he firmly believes, and he shows in India's policy that the world is one family from India's point of view. Now, we come to the difficulties in the situation in Myanmar. You know, it has been a very severe earthquake, and the infrastructure of Myanmar was pretty fragile. So I don't think Myanmar was really in a position to tackle the consequences of an earthquake of this severity. And there are certain cities, certain parts of Myanmar along the coast where relief assistance hasn't even reached till now, and people there are in great distress. And over 1,700 people have already been found dead. But according to media reports, this figure will go up several fold. And in fact, some media representatives who are there are saying that the figure will cross 10,000. So this is going to be a huge catastrophe. And again, as you said, the internal situation in Myanmar is very fragile. There is the insurgency going on. There is the fighting between the junta and the opposite opponents. And naturally, this complicates the entire relief operation. But nonetheless, as far as India's approach is concerned, I think we have been the first responders, and along with some other countries, China has also come forward in a very big way. Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, many other countries in Southeast Asia are willing to come forward and help. And it will be an uphill battle. It will be an uphill battle because the scale of the disaster is very, very high. But nonetheless, we will do whatever we can. And that is what is the underlying basis of the approach of India.
I will want to update my audience right now. Statement has been released by the Myanmar Junta. The spokesperson has said that there are as many as 2,056 people that have died in the earthquake. There are about 3,900 people that are injured. There are 270 still missing. It's the day 3 after the massive earthquake hit Myanmar. Major General Dhruv Katoch, what is also surprising is the fact that there are no media agencies, international media agencies and outlets that have reported the India's first responder effort in providing financial and material aid to Myanmar, whether it is AFP or Reuters or I see other news agencies. There have been reports pouring in, whether it is about the Chinese help or the Russians or for that matter Thailand, but somehow India's name is conspicuous by its absence. Why is that? Is this by design, or has information about India's aid initiative not reached these agencies?
Thank you, Megha. Megha, as this is a question of narrative building. And I think whether the Western media reports it or not, I think the Indian media and the government of India, we need to make it very clear to the whole world what India's role has been. India is one of the first responders. In fact, I think here India was the first responder.
Yes.
And immediately we got into the act to provide assistance in this devastating earthquake. The Western agencies, they have their own slant. The Chinese have their own slant, and everybody gives in their versions. But I think it is high time that we propagated ours, because the very fact that we have actually established a hospital there in those very difficult circumstances in such quick time, that I think is a very significant achievement, because the government of Myanmar is not in a position to treat the casualties of that number, and that is where medical aid comes in, and we have provided, of course, other assistance also. The second thing to remember is that assistance to reach every corner of Myanmar is going to take some time. It cannot be done immediately, because the roads have to be opened, communication channels have to be opened, and there are so many other activities that take place. Perhaps the Chinese have provided access to the Western reporters by which they're getting that sort of a coverage. Perhaps the Indians are not in those positions where that coverage is really available. But I think that really doesn't matter. The Indian role is significant. The world will come to know about it, whether they talk about it now or not. Megha.
I have with me OP Singh, former DG NDRF, also on the telecast with me. OP Singh, what kind of a humongous effort is required for operations such as Brahma to be successfully implemented?
Good evening, Megha. That's true that the speakers before me, they have already said the kind of alacrity and the kind of fastness we had in sending our NDRF rescuers as well as the international aid. We have already seen in case of Nepal, we have already seen in case of Turkey in 2023, and now we are seeing in case of Myanmar. NDRF has quickly acted with its 80 rescuers and 4 or 5 dog squad. And immediately I have the information that they have already retrieved 6 dead bodies. In fact, the difficulties there are that they haven't been able to dig very deep, because of the fact that the structures have collapsed in a very pancake fashion. And pancake fashion is one kind of structural collapse where upper floors progressively fall within the downstairs within on the first floor. So it becomes very difficult. You have immediately collection of a huge rubble in that spot, and it becomes very difficult to trace anybody or to locate any trapped person. And we have already 3 days gone, and in that situation, it will be very difficult. But they are fighting tooth and nail, and in fact, they are desperately searching for survivors even after 3 days of their earthquake. And it so happens that first 72 hours is a very golden hour, golden window it is called. And it is after that, if you don't succeed in tracing or locating some victim, it becomes very difficult, challenging. But I have got a report saying that one lady was trapped for about 60 hours and she could be taken out. So that miracle takes place. But in this case, the NDRF rescuers are working day in and day out. They have already gone for rescue of 170 monks. They were stranded at some monastery, and after that, they went to one place which is called Sky Villa, where four 11-story buildings had collapsed like a plain pancake fashion. Initial efforts by volunteers in that particular country were mainly unequipped. That was not very forthcoming, and that is why we have the latest report, as you said, that more than 2,000 people have died, and the scale of damage could only be known after the whole operation is over. But there are a few challenges. The first and the foremost challenge is the weak infrastructure there. The roads are blocked, the communication is not in a very good shape, and then you have the aftershocks. That is very important. The aftershocks are coming, and that is why we are getting the reports that a lot of people are spending their time outside in open space rather than being in the building, precisely for this reason. I had seen the same thing in Nepal earthquake in 2015, when aftershocks were quite frequent, and this happens on almost all conditions of earthquake. We have an earthquake of magnitude of 7.7 or 7.8. So I think the NDRF rescuers are doing a very excellent job. They are doing commendable job, and I'm sure that they will be able to do some more work there and try to not only retrieve the dead bodies, but even go for some live victims, as we did in case of Nepal and Turkey.
Rajul Goenka, who's the president of the Myanmar India Business Chamber, is joined with me right now. Rajul, how devastating is the loss, material and human, that the people of Myanmar are facing right now? How long do you think it is going to take to clear the debris and the rubble? And after that, eventually, once dead bodies are retrieved from under the debris, how long do you think it is going to take, and cumbersome a process, to rehabilitate, to rebuild Myanmar from scratch?
Well, as you just pointed out, the depressing news regarding more than 2,000 people having lost their lives. The data was just released by the government a few minutes from now. We hope the death toll remains as low as possible. And the devastation, as more and more information, we are receiving more and more information from the Mandalay and the adjoining regions. The devastation is very, very huge. We have also, from the Myanmar Family Hindu Relief Group, have sent in volunteers to help in Mandalay and Zagai. And the reports we have got that I think every street in Mandalay has a structure which has been damaged or a building which has fallen. So from a devastation point of view, I think it is pretty huge. It will take some time for us to get the debris out and get the infrastructure back online, because it's not only the buildings, the power infrastructure has been damaged quite significantly. As I had said earlier, that Yangon, we are getting electricity only for 4 hours in a day. The telecom infrastructure has also been hit quite significantly. And the highways connecting Yangon to Mandalay also have been damaged pretty badly, with a lot of bridges falling down, a lot of cracks which have appeared on the highways. So it will take some time for the restoration of these infrastructure. But everyone is hoping and praying that we are able to rescue all people who are unfortunately stuck under the rebel. I must commend the Indian response. It makes us proud, Indian origin people living in Myanmar. The way Indian government has responded, and the teams the team they have sent, the relief material they have sent. I also would like to thank the governments of other countries who have sent in their rescue teams, because rescue of life is, I feel, the immediate priority that everyone has on their mind. Infrastructure can be built, we can restore the infrastructure in the coming days and months. But everyone is hoping and praying that we are able to rescue as many people as possible, in this given unfortunate scenario.
Ambassador Dayal, the regime in place is clearly not capable of managing a disaster of the magnitude that has hit Myanmar. Now, they have already sent out an international SOS 2 days ago. They have declared a week of mourning, national mourning in the country. There was a report that poured in just a few hours ago that there were these 700 Muslim devout who were praying on the occasion of the Friday prayers that Muslims take part in, and all 700 of them dead. Now, out of those 2,056 people that are reported to have been died, official figures that Junta is sharing, 700 of them just like, ended, their lives just ended at that very moment when the earthquake struck. Now, how, and there have been, the Red Cross, there is UNICEF, there is the World Health Organization, all their volunteers are on the ground right now, and they are saying it's extremely difficult for them to provide help, to reach those areas because of a number of difficulties, whether it is about the civil war, whether it is about the physical incumbencies they are facing. We've seen, there was reports of, stench emanating across the town of Mandalay and the neighboring town which the epicenter was, and people are having to dig up dead bodies with their bare hands because help is not, they're not able to bring about help over there. Cranes are not being brought about, they're not able to bring about the cranes, the bulldozers, in a situation so difficult that you feel helpless. How is restoration work going to happen? How is Myanmar going to be brought back to normalcy?
Well, Megha, you have in a very brilliant manner outlined the big challenges. The infrastructure is inadequate. The scale of the devastation is humongous. Then, to complicate matters, there is that internal problem going on in the form of insurgency, and that is an impediment. But what can a country like India do? It can certainly help as a neighbor and as a country which means well towards Myanmar. Now, let me rectify the impression which you have that India's efforts have not found mention in the media. I have been following the international media very, very religiously, and India's role is getting increasingly prominently mentioned in the media. I was following Deutsche Welle, the German broadcaster, and it said that China and India are the first responders and have sent the largest supplies of aid. Similarly, Al Jazeera, which is a channel which is watched very much in the Middle East region and also watched in India, mentioned India at number one position as being very quick to respond. Now, the first supply of relief equipment and first relief supplies would have reached just about an hour ago, 5:45 Myanmar time. Now, as aid reaches, it will get more prominently mentioned. But let me also clarify that the situation on the ground is so complicated that news agencies are more intent on reporting the scale of the damage and the difficulties being encountered. And I think they may mention the external aid that is coming in, but that is not going to be a priority for them. Mm-hmm. They will mention on the scale of the problem. And I think you have rightly outlined the dimensions of this, because the problem is humongous. There are so many impediments. It's going to be a big challenge. It's not going to be overcome overnight. It'll take a long time, given all the handicaps. But nonetheless, it's a battle which has to be fought against. It is an opponent that we have to encounter, and that opponent is come in the form of this massive earthquake and all the devastation that it has wreaked.
Well, I'm very glad to know that, yes, international media is covering and talking about how India has been the first responder. We and our sister news channel, which is NewsX World, which is an international channel, are also intimating and broadcasting information about how the Indian government, the Indian armed forces have been the first responders and putting in all efforts to allow for the rehabilitation work, to allow for relief and rescue operations, to pursue and continue till the time the last of the bodies are pulled out, till the time the survivors are given medical aid, till the time also moving forward. General Dhruv Katoch, do you think it is incumbent on India to provide medium-term and long-term relief measures to build the country, keeping in mind it has been the priority of India and the government of India for look east, act east, and Myanmar is our neighbor. Several of our northeastern states share the border with Myanmar.
Megha, Myanmar is very, very important to India. In fact, it is vital as far as our Act East policy is concerned, because without Myanmar, that policy cannot go ahead. So the efforts of the government of India are very, very focused towards what is happening in Myanmar now. But the challenges are two. One is this earthquake and the devastation which has caused, because as rightly mentioned by Mr. Goenka, there are three issues. One is the communication infrastructure which has broken down, the power supply which has broken down, and the roads and the bridges which have gone. So how do you get the heavy material there to uplift all the debris, as far as the search and rescue is concerned? That is the first challenge. We will do whatever we can, but it will take time. I think after say within the next 3 to 4 days, when there is some semblance of order restored, I'm not saying normalcy, order restored, then we can even start planning on a long-term reconstruction. This is going to take at least the next 2 to 5 years. A reconstruction will not take place anything less than that. But the challenges which are really on the ground right now is the ongoing insurgency. And I think it behoves all parties, the NUG, the ethnic armed organizations, and the junta. I think that for some time they need to get together. All of them they're not seeing eye to eye. They have got their own agendas. But I think in this calamity, they need to get together. And I think if the government of India can assist diplomatically towards that end, that itself will be a huge achievement. The Indian community in Myanmar can also act likewise to do whatever they can to get these chaps together. That unified action, I think, is very important, and then we will take it from there. But it is going to be a long-term effort, and I have no doubts in my mind that the government of India, especially Prime Minister Modi's government, will do whatever it takes to get Myanmar back on the rails. Megha.
Right, absolutely. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views and analyzing the situation. The ground reality of Myanmar right now, it's devastating. The fact that there have been satellite images that have been shared which show the before and after images, structures that had been raised have just completely fallen flat. And there is this stark difference that you can see. Ground that has been completely raised because of the impact of this massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake has completely devastated Myanmar. Like I said, rescue operations are on and efforts will be in full swing to bring about some sense of order and rehabilitation, to save more and more lives of Myanmaris, and bringing about at least the basic of the basic infrastructure, food, medicines, electricity, water. These are essentials, and efforts are being made to provide these to the people who are in distress. On that note, I slip into a short break. Thanks for watching NewsX.